With the Tournament of Power underway in Dragon Ball Super, I thought of this. Are we experiencing the biggest plot point that Dragon Ball can ever have? A plot point that no matter what you think of, no matter how creative you get, there's nothing that can ever possibly be bigger than the Tournament of Power? Well, to answer your thoughts, alrighty guys, it is Quadman here today, also known as Detective Q, and I'm going to go through the history of Dragon Ball, explain all of the ever-expanding points, and come to a conclusion as to if it's even possible to top the Tournament of Power. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So, let's break this down. So going back to Dragon Ball, the whole theme and general plot of Dragon Ball was to prove yourself against competition. You obviously had the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai tournaments, and along the way Goku was facing against massive villains with the Red Ribbon Army, fighting against King Piccolo, and then eventually fighting against Piccolo Jr. And in all of these fights that Goku went through, he defeated all of these threats. He proved himself ultimately as the #1 fighter as he defeated Piccolo Jr. in the 23rd tournament, and he was the strongest guy in the world. And the entire story started off with Goku fighting against Master Roshi in the 21st tournament, and Master Roshi entering so that Goku and Krillin didn't get their egos inflated, so that they could always push themselves to fight against stronger and tougher competition. But this takes me into the next question. With that said, the whole point of Dragon Ball was to prove yourself against competition on Earth. But Dragon Ball Z took this up until the next scale. Dragon Ball Z introduced large-scale battles, and what it also did is that now that Goku has pretty much conquered what he could do on Earth, it created villains that were not of Earth, or it actually created artificial entities that were created through cybernetics and created through magic. We see this as Vegeta is an alien of the Saiyan race that comes to Earth to threaten Goku and the entire planet, and then we see later on that Frieza is an emperor and an evil tyrant who's taking over the galaxy, and Cell is an artificial creation by Dr. Gero, the same guy whose army was defeated by Goku back in Dragon Ball, and Majin Buu, as we all know, was created from magic from Bibidi. So with all of this said, and I know that some of you are going to also question that there's been a conflict with Majin Buu, because there's also sources that say Majin Buu's always existed. So if you want to go with the whole Bibidi creating Buu from magic, or if you want to say that Majin Buu's always existed, either one, the point is that he is an entity that is not of the planet Earth. And the point I'm trying to get at here is that Dragon Ball always continues to push itself further and further and further into the series itself. But the thing about Z that separated it from Ball is the fact that all of these characters in Vegeta, Cell, Frieza, and Majin Buu, all of these characters were capable of destroying the planet. Something that all of the Dragon Ball villains were able to conquer the planet or to destroy massive amounts of people, but not to easily just wipe out a planet, which ultimately pushed Goku even further. But when we move on to Dragon Ball GT, I understand a lot of you are going to say that GT is not canon, and I understand that a lot of you are going to say that Dragon Ball GT is not really a part of the main continuity of the series, but Dragon Ball GT did introduce some new concepts, and it did rewind back a lot to the earlier parts of Dragon Ball with just a lot more powers. And what this comes through is it revitalized the whole concept of having a Dragon Ball hunt, because we really hadn't had that since the Namek arc, and we really hadn't had that since back in Dragon Ball. And although there were moments where characters were always searching for Dragon Balls, nothing was as big as those sequences. And later on, we also get a chance to see in Dragon Ball GT that what goes around comes back around. And we see that Baby, the Sufurian or Tuffle, wants revenge for what the Saiyans did to all of his people. And as a result of this, he takes Vegeta's body, who is the son of the guy who literally made his race extinct. And if we go even further, Dr. Gero and Dr. Mew take us back to what happened back in Dragon Ball Z. Doctors who are geniuses, who are pissed off for what you did to them and all of their creations, they want to create something in Super Android 17 that wants to combat you once again because of the actions that you took previously. And last but not least, the ultimate plot of Dragon Ball GT was the Shadow Dragons, What goes around comes back around in the sense that you used the Dragon Ball so much that all of the negative energy was manifested into these shadow dragons that comes back to fight against you. And the thing is that Dragon Ball GT's stakes were not that different from Z in the sense that it didn't really take it up a notch, because all of these characters were capable of destroying planets, and a lot of these characters were homegrown on planet Earth or created artificially, like what happened in Dragon Ball Z. But the point is that it kind of reversed the way the villains were actually created, as it was more about revenge being created from actual past experiences. But for the grand finale, let's talk about Dragon Ball Super. So as all of you guys would know, the first two arcs were pretty much just movie rehashes and Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F, so there's really not much to say there. But when it comes to the Universe 6 Champa arc, here's where I find things interesting. So the Universe 6 Champa arc is kind of like a mini tournament of power where you took 5 characters from 2 different universes and made them duke it out. Some of these were some of the strongest characters in their most respective universes, and that was an interesting way to introduce characters from another universe. And although all of the characters are not 100% original, as Champa is pretty much just a fat Beerus twin, Kaba is just another Saiyan, and Frost is just a universal version of Frieza, I don't think we can go for that as being 100% original, but it was cool to deal with those character concepts and making them fight. However, when we move on to the future Trunks arc, here's where things get more interesting. So, Zamasu is a villain in this arc, and he's a villain who was a Supreme Kai apprentice to Gowasu, which is something we haven't really seen before. He's literally a godlike character who went rogue, and the cool thing about Zamasu is that he had a very different agenda from a lot of other Dragon Ball villains that we've seen so far. He considers himself serving justice by trying to wipe out the mortals, and he also took Goku's body in the process, fused with himself, became ultra powerful, required a Super Saiyan Blue fusion, and made Zeno the strongest character in all of the universes to come down and eventually take him out because of how strong he was and because of how his body could not just disappear after Trunks sliced him in half. So the point I'm getting at here that creates a little bit of a dilemma with Dragon Ball Super would have to be dealing with Zeno. When you think about Zeno, if he is the strongest character in all of these universes, which has been proven, that means that no matter what villain comes after this tournament of power, Zeno can take him out. Before Zeno came around in the Dragon Ball series, what we had were the Gods of Destruction. So we go back to Battle of Gods, go back to Resurrection of F, we thought that Beerus and the other potential Gods of Destruction were the strongest that you could possibly be, and it was up to Goku and Vegeta to surpass these guys and compare to gods. But if you really think about it, the problem with all of this is that if Beerus, for example, or if Champa, for example, were to ever go rogue and start causing problems, we now know that there are so many other characters that can compare with them in power or stop them, that a potential plotline of using the Gods of Destruction in a negative way is kind of thrown out of the window if Zeno could possibly just stop them along with the Grand Priest and the Angels if they decided not to be neutral in those situations. And this also puts a cap on what you could do with the Supreme Kais, because at this point, guys, in a weird way, the Supreme Kais are very limited in what they can do in terms of power other than just ruling over the universe and expanding and creating more of the universe itself. So I kind of feel like Zeno's existence limits what other characters can possibly do. So the point is unless Zeno becomes a villain moving forward, which I don't think is 100% impossible to happen, what could you possibly do to be a threat at this point in the series? And I honestly don't think there's anything that Dragon Ball Super can do to create a new villain, and I also don't think anything Dragon Ball Super can do can be bigger than a Tournament of Power, because you're taking all of the strongest fighters from all these different universes and determining who's the strongest fighter or fighters from all these respective universes themselves. So ultimately, I don't see a way that Dragon Ball Super can get bigger than this, guys. And the video doesn't end here because the comment section is an extension of what I say. Let me know what ways you possibly think Dragon Ball Super can get bigger than the Tournament of Power, as we've already seen like the strongest characters that we can possibly see, and we can't think of a villain that could be stronger than the characters that are already here. So with everything else said, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys, and let me know your thoughts.